Hey everybody, welcome to our journey management workshop today. I'm so excited for you to join us here. This is one of the many events that the CX on the Rocks program offers, workshops like this. So if you don't know about it, many of you may be new to it. Several of you I know are from the community, but this online community, CX on the Rocks, is really about dialogue and helping you as a practitioner, as a leader in a business to really understand the changing environment of CX. It is completely being reinvented under our feet. AI is doing a ton of that. You know, the importance of the work we're doing is very, very solid, but we've got to change with it. We've got to understand that change. So I'd love for you all to join the community for access to all the events. So we have up to weekly events that you can come to if you're a member of the community. Some of them are just for members, and oh, by the way, it's free to join. Some are just for members, some are for more public audiences. But we'd love to have you join. Go to cxontherocks.com/join. We put it in the chat. Great opportunity for you to network, to work with peers, and we want to hear from you. Your successes, your opportunities, your challenges, so that maybe we can help you with that as well. Because it really takes us all as a group, as a collective, if you will, to navigate this together, because it's a crazy time for CX. That's why it's kind of a little bit on the rocks, but we also have that other definition, which is we want to be building our foundation on the rocks and not the sand. And so that's where CX on the Rocks comes in to help you network. So today, though, I'm joined by David Seaton. We've got a great session today, and we're going to have a lot of fun, but we're going to talk about journey mapping to journey management and really take that over. So let me pull up the slides here real quick.
I'll just echo that sentiment. Join the community. Our weekly events are more conversational, roundtable style. Today is more of a presentation, but we will have plenty of opportunity for Q&A. So if you have questions, we're watching the chat as we go. You can go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. And very excited to talk about customer journey management.
Yeah, Dave, and we're going to talk about leading change, one with your DARMA method, which I think everybody's going to be excited to hear about. It's an incredible way to look at this process. And then we're going to do a little bit of conversation about QuestionPro's customer journey management platform as well. They are a partner of ours at the CX on the Rocks Collective, and so we're happy to have them both sponsoring and being a part of this event as well. So let's actually kick in a little bit with introductions as we start going. A quick introduction myself. So Sean Albertson, I'm a professional speaker. I'm an author and consultant. And I focus much of my work. In fact, my first book, For Rocks, was based very securely on the customer journey. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I share my content from stages. I do a lot of events and as well do consulting. So happy to join you. I'm the founder of the CX on the Rocks Collective, and happy to have you consider that and join us. But Dave, good friend, go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm Dave Seaton. I'm an independent consultant. My company is Seaton CX, and we focus on the customer journey, mapping the customer journey, understanding those insights, and then helping companies take action and achieve their business outcomes, both improvements to the customer experience and improvements to the business, because we all know that's the why behind our customer experience work, is helping our companies grow profitably by serving our customers.
Awesome. Well, and I'm happy to have you join because I know you live and breathe this every day. So great to have you join me. And we're going to talk about a lot of really cool stuff in this space. And in many ways, I kind of see, and I think you do too as well, Dave, the customer journey mapping is almost having a resurgence or a revival, if you will. It's been around for a very long time, but I know I'm seeing it a lot more in the customers I work with, the clients I work with, and businesses. It's just become much more rich in an opportunity. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is, traditional surveys where, CX has hung their hat on surveys and net promoter score and customer satisfaction and all those different metrics, for a very long time. In fact, a lot of departments that are called CX, that's what all they do. They focus on gathering feedback. But we know because we don't want to take surveys anymore. It's kind of like tipping, right? Tipping and surveys have become so common. And it's just one of those areas that we're seeing the response rates drop. We're seeing them not give us the rich information and content and feedback that we used to see. In addition, on the flip side, the customer journey has gotten so much more complex. Different channels, and now we got AI and chatbots and AI agents and all this, these other ways that people are interacting with the organization. So it's getting so much more complex. At the same line, the customer loyalty and the data my company and the research I uncovered was it's all based on their most recent experience with you. It used to be kind of an average of all of their experiences determined loyalty. Not anymore. It's like Janet Jackson saying, what have you done for me lately, right? It's so much more based on today, and it's listening isn't enough. It's not that line with the yellow dot is kind of like a customer journey with just one survey. That's not enough to really understand. In fact, I like this more as my visual as we look through this. It's understanding that this is the new journey, right? It's a lot of different flows, and I like to say, and my books are about it, is the customer journey is like a river. We like to think in our organizations, we design nice, straight, smooth, lazy rivers. But the reality is they're getting more complex, they're getting more challenging, and customers are running into rocks. They're running into obstacles, poorly trained agents, tech that doesn't work right, all of these different components, because most of the problems are actually the space in between the channels and so forth. And that gives us harder to really measure that unless you're doing journey mapping and journey management. And that's today's way that you can, for your organization, you can find the CX improvement opportunities at scale, is by really understanding the journey and digging in, because you got to understand that effort being even more of a predictor of loyalty than it's ever been. Our research from last year showed that if something was easy, if a journey was easy, a customer's 12 times more likely to be loyal. If it's hard, if their journey is hard, 13 times more likely to be disloyal. So again, if it's based on their most recent experience and it has these level of predictions, then we have to be absolutely understand which of our journeys are more complex, which of them are harder to do. And the only way to do that is through journey mapping and journey management. Dave, I think you're seeing that in your clients as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about that as we get into it. But effort is a huge factor in customer loyalty today.
So Dave, let's talk about that. Journey mapping. What is it?
Yeah, so you mentioned there's a resurgence of journey mapping, customer journey mapping, or at least something called customer journey mapping. And I talked to a lot of people about customer journey mapping. And, honestly, if you ask 10 different people or you read the top 10 results on Google as to what is a customer journey map, you'll get 10 different answers. And so for the rest of this discussion, I wanted to ground us on what even is a customer journey map. And we'll start with the word map, the noun version of it. Merriam-Webster defines that as a diagram or other visual representation that shows the relative positions of the parts of something. And so the idea here is that something exists and the map is going to show, visualize what that thing is. And I think it's also important to add a preposition to distinguish between a map of and a map to. On the map of side, we might have a map of the world. We might have a map of the brain. We might have a map of the customer journey. And these are visualizations of something as it exists out there. It's just a picture of what exists. We might also have a map to the buried treasure, a map to the airport, a map to customer acquisition. And while these are valuable as well for different reasons, they're not a customer journey map. A customer journey map is a map of the customer journey. And so on the next slide, we'll define a customer journey map is a visualization of the experience a customer has as they interact with your company to accomplish their goal. And that goal is going to be so critically important. It's that goal that turns a person into a customer. Whether it's a very discrete goal, like paying my taxes on time and getting the maximum refund, or if it's a more ephemeral goal, like feeling luxurious or impressing the neighbors or being motivated to achieve a life goal. Um, these goals are why customers become customers in the first place. And how they interact with our companies as they attempt to accomplish these goals creates that customer journey or that customer experience that they have. Now, customer journey mapping is simply the activity of discovering and documenting the customer journey. You can advance the slide, Sean. There we go. Um, so it's this activity of discovering this thing that exists out there. If you have customers, they have a journey that they are on. And so customer journey mapping is discovering what that looks like and visualizing it and documenting that. All right, so we're going to get into how to create a compelling customer journey map. But first, we need to look at the three elements of an experience. What even is a customer experience? It's three things. The first is success. Was the customer successful in accomplishing their goal? Did they pay their taxes on time and get the maximum refund? Were they motivated to eat healthier, exercise more? Did they impress the neighbors? Did they accomplish that goal? And that's the price of admission. That's table stakes for your customer experience. If customers aren't successful, then they're not going to be customers for very long. But beyond that is effort. Effort is simply how easy or difficult was it for customers to accomplish that goal. And Sean mentioned effort is a huge, huge factor in customer loyalty. We need to not only help our customers be successful, but make it incredibly easy for them to achieve that success. And then the third element is emotion. And emotion, as you might imagine, is tied to the other elements. And emotion
بفكر
can,
بفكر
oh, I think we got somebody who needs to go on mute. And emotion can be a high degree or a small degree over the course of the journey. I don't typically experience strong emotions when I'm preparing my taxes, right? I typically don't experience strong emotions when I pick up a rental car. And for that reason, of the hundreds of rental cars I've picked up in my life, I don't remember most of them. But I remember the one last week because while I was successful, I got my rental car and it was the right car and it worked. The effort was higher than it should have been. And the way they made me feel as a customer triggered a strong and a strongly negative emotion. And you better believe that that will impact my loyalty to that company. So these are the three elements of an experience that as we're mapping the customer journey, we need to be thinking about and we need to be capturing and we need to be communicating so that the organization can act on this. So
Dave, I
how
had
did
I had one of those situations last week myself. I was got this go to this slot, like it normally does. No car. So
mm,
had to go stand in line and yeah, it not fun. Exactly.
Yeah, the agent that was checking me in left the desk to go hug her friend who had just shown up for work, and then they rummaged in a cabinet to get her friend some new tiny plastic ducks to put on her receipt printer while I'm standing there waiting for my car because I had an hour and a half drive I had to do before dinner.
So,
Yeah.
sounds like I need to go back to the rental car companies, huh?
Yeah. Yep, for sure, Eric. All right, let's look at how we create customer journey maps. Um, when I started customer journey mapping over 6 years ago, the process was shrouded in mystery. You had to, join a secret society and pray to the authors of 3 different books and do a bunch of chants, and maybe they would show you what a real customer journey map looked like and how to make it. And I'm very analytical. I'm very process driven. And so after doing this many, many times, I put together a standard process based on my experience. It's called the DARMA method. And DARMA is simply an acronym for the 5 steps. Has nothing to do with Dharma and Greg or the Eastern belief, which are some questions I get. But no, it's nothing that creative. It's just an acronym with the 5 steps. So, step 1 is to define the opportunity. At the very beginning, we clearly define the problem we're going to solve or the opportunity that we're going to pursue. And this sets the scope, the parameters for everything that comes after it. Okay. So our business opportunities typically come in 4 business cases, 4 flavors. There are others that are less common, but there's typically 4 big reasons why we would engage in customer journey mapping. And we'll use the analogy of a coffee shop. Pretend that you are the owner of a coffee shop. All right. The first business case is to acquire more customers and or acquire those customers at a lower customer acquisition cost. So you want to get more customers in the door of your coffee shop. The second business case is to retain customers, to keep those customers coming back. There are many coffee shops in your town. You want your customers to continue to come to your coffee shop. The third business case is to get a greater share of your customers' wallets. So your coffee drinking customers are also going to buy breakfast somewhere. You want them to buy breakfast at your coffee shop. So how do you get them to not only buy the coffee, but also buy a muffin? So you're getting a greater share of your customer's wallet. And the fourth business case is to reduce the cost to serve those customers without reducing the quality of service. And this comes into efficiency. Make it easy, make it fast, reduce customer complaints, resolve those complaints more quickly. All of those things, if you don't do them well, they add up to operational costs for your coffee shop. All right, so step 1, we're going to clearly define the problem. Then we're going to go to phase 2, analyze the current state. This is where we get everything the company already knows or thinks that they know about the customer journey, and we're going to develop the journey hypothesis. That's what we, as the company, we think that the customer journey is. Now, a lot of customer journey maps stop there and they say, we're done. Here's our customer journey map. The problem is we haven't validated that. We don't know if that's the true customer experience or not. And looks like somebody's drawing on the screen there. And so the journey hypothesis is going to help us prepare for step 3, which is to research the customer experience. So we're going to use that journey hypothesis to develop the research instruments to go out there and actually discover what the customer experience is in reality. And this is the most important of the 5 steps. The quality of your research determines the quality of your map, and then therefore the effectiveness of your action. So if you do an A plus on research, you're going to have an A plus map, and you're going to get really good actions out of that. If you have low quality research, low quality map, you're not going to discover the truth, and then the actions that you take won't be as effective because they're not going to improve the customer experience. Step 4, only after we've done the research do we then analyze the findings and map the customer journey. So here we are creating the map after we've done the research. And we'll talk a little later in this event about personas, but we're going to develop those personas based on our research. And then the last step, step 5, is to act. If you don't act on your customer journey map, then the whole 4 steps were just a waste. You've just done a really cool art project, but you haven't driven any change. And so step 5, it's where I was last week. We were doing an Insights to Action workshop with a company. They produced 27 pages of recommendations for business cases to improve the customer journey. And they're now going to prioritize those, make the cases, and take action. Now, sometimes I call it the hidden step. Sometimes I call it step 5.5. It's really not a step on its own, and that's change management. It weaves through all 5 steps so that the organization is primed to act. So that means all the way at the beginning, where we're defining that business opportunity, we're bringing our stakeholders along through this entire process so that when we get to the action phase, nobody's confused, nobody's, got their arms folded, kind of standoffish. Everybody is engaged. They've seen all this firsthand. They either watched or participated in the research. They understand the map, and they're ready to take action. And this is where we go from mapping into journey management. And if you do this properly, you can get some incredible results. So on the next slide are actual results that my clients have achieved from acting on their customer journey maps. 81% improvement in issue resolution time. Great for customers, but also reducing that cost to serve customers without reducing the quality of service. 66% reduction in customer churn year over year. That is, for this company, millions of dollars in recurring revenue straight to their top line from customers they'd already acquired. 27% reduction in average handle time for customer service calls. In this business case, we shaved 3.5 minutes off the calls with customers when they were complaining about a particular issue, which goes right to operational efficiency, right? That 3.5 minutes can be deployed to other calls, and it's easier for customers as well. And also a 24% improvement in customer satisfaction. You can't upsell a dissatisfied customer. So in a share of wallet play, happier customers are more likely to buy that muffin in addition to their coffee. Or in B2B software, they're buy additional products, additional modules, additional users. So when you do customer journey mapping correctly, and then you manage those journeys, it really does achieve incredible business outcomes for your company. So now,
Dave,
yeah.
these are like incredible results that I know you've gotten. And there's a question, are these results B2C or B2B? If you don't mind sharing some of those.
Yeah, all these results are B2B. It does work in B2C as well, and in B2B2C. So I guess the 81% is B to B to C. Multinational electronics manufacturer, they sell to dealers who then sell to customers. Um, yeah.
And I know that, even I think it was last week in one of the solution series with CX on the Rocks, we actually had the whole conversation was about journey management. We started talking about the different terms like journey mapping, journey management, journey design, journey orchestration. I mean, it was actually an interesting set of dialogue around there. When you think about this, like you can't get these results if you're just mapping. That's the key point, right? That
Right.
A in Dharma is action, and we're going to talk more about that. But when you think about all these different terms that are coming out, what do you see as kind of the differences there, because they're all part of this ecosystem of focusing on the journey?
Yeah. So again, mapping a map of the customer journey, you're visualizing something that exists, right? We get into customer journey design. If we want to radically create a new customer journey, maybe we're launching a new product, a new company, maybe we don't have customers yet. So we're using our design thinking to create a journey that doesn't exist. Journey management is really the cycle of continuous improvement as we manage big, complex journeys. Um, Talking about this 81% company, right? We just mapped the journey of dealers, right? And the B to B to C, we mapped the middle B and their journey as being dealers and doing multi-year projects for their customers. And so journey management is looking at that journey at all the different phases and steps and where are the critical moments that have that disproportionate impact to how customers are experiencing our company, and then how do we work to continuously improve that. Um, one company has made over the last 6 years, I think they've made over 70 improvements to a single touch point, right? That was a touch point that was a big critical moment for their customers. And they are just in this continuous improvement cycle, making that easier and easier and easier. Hey, Valerie, great to see you. Where do journey atlases fit in this approach, or do they? Absolutely. We'll talk in a few minutes about linked journeys. And
Ooh,
right, we
okay.
have end to end journeys that are like a map of the United States. If I want to go from California to Maine on a road trip, that'd be really useful to me. And then we have journeys, which are like a map of the state of Colorado. How am I going to get across Colorado? Where, if I want to spend the night in Denver, how do I get there? How do I navigate across the Rocky Mountains? That would be really useful. And then we have micro journeys. The 27% reduction in average handle time here, that was a micro journey. It was a very specific complaint call that was a big deal when customers had it, but not all customers had it. And so all of these together, we can call it a journey atlas, collection of maps, right? And we're going to look at a way to use software to link these together. So if you're looking at a big map, you can drill down into a smaller map, a smaller journey, or a micro journey.
Yeah, and I think the one piece that was really interesting, we had a little bit of fun with it. We call it journey orchestration, but I think the reality is, very soon, if not, already, the expectation is, to interrupt the journey. If a customer journey is going down a negative path, is interrupt a journey immediately and in process, and make those changes so that they don't go down the unhappy path. And tools and AI and things are, they're going to enable that, but you've got to have this core. You've got to have the mapping done, and management in place, or else you'll never get to that future state. So we'll talk more about that as well. So I wanted to jump in. So I think it kind of continues this conversation about the trajectory, right? Again, it's similar to what you covered a little bit already, but you know, most people focus on journey mapping at the feedback collection and the metrics, because that's what you have to have from the journey perspective. You have to know, what is the feedback, and then what are the metrics to track that. We analytics, reporting and socialization obviously are parts of that as well. But I want to go even back further to say, you talked about it, right at the beginning. It's that strategy. You have to have you got to be looking to solve an ROI. If you don't start a journey mapping exercise without a clear ROI, like you said in the define stage, then you don't know how you're going to measure success. And that is something that's very important. And then, of course, ending in the opportunity for driving action. I'll ask if you guys could careful not to mark on the screen. I appreciate it. As we go through this, though, the further opportunity is let's look at the more traditional journey map. Now, Dave, you and I have done this. We've done it together in workshops with folks, but this is kind of that legacy way of looking at it, like cover a wall in a conference room with a whole bunch of sticky notes, and and gather the notes and move them around, and maybe even connect them, from a drawing perspective. And that's still fundamentally there's a lot of value to that, right? I mean, talk a little bit about when we've done that and when you've done that, what that enables within the group, especially in the workshops.
Yeah, it's a great facilitation tactic to get everybody up moving, engaged, talking about the journey. We did this last week, right? So we revealed our research, playing back those video clips of customers talking about their experience, those critical moments in the journey where they were getting emotional, they were experiencing those emotions because they were having high effort or they weren't successful, thinking about those three elements of customer experience. And so, sticky notes on a wall is a great way to collaborate and get everybody really thinking about this. Well, what is the customer doing here? What is the customer doing there? The problem is when the workshop's over, right? So we all walked out of that room last Friday. Somebody, is taking pictures of the sticky notes and trying to, document, trying to remember everything that was discussed when, somebody wrote, shorthand on a sticky note. What did that really mean? What was the conversation that we had? And then how do you take those sticky notes on a wall and then create something more durable that's actually going to drive change in the organization, that you're going to be able to share with executive stakeholders, that you're going to be able to reference as you make a business case, and that you're going to be able to monitor how that changes as you go and implement your actions. And so that's where sticky notes on a wall or even a virtual whiteboard begin to fail us as continuous improvement tools.
Yeah, and again, the cool thing though is it gets everybody around the wall, around and engaged, and that's where when we think about why technology now is a key part to that, and it's partly that as well, because a lot of us are now remote, right? We're virtual, so having that opportunity that wherever you are to have a similar opportunity to engage within the journey mapping process to evaluate, because again, if you want that change to happen, you've got to get people on board, right? You've got to get people involved in that, because the customer journey, the complex customer journey, is so many different people own different parts of that now, and so you've got to have that engagement, and that's where the new technology can really help out doing that. So we're going to talk a little bit now about the QuestionPro customer journey management platform. And as we look at this, we're looking for opportunities to drive alignment, drive involvement, and ultimately, like as we said earlier, drive change, drive action within the organization. And so as we think about that, journey mapping software has definitely been around. There's a lot of different tools. There are some that you can use that are free. There are others that are at a charge level. But the reality is that the value of looking at those journeys is so important together. Because we looked at that. You talked about it, Dave, already. The art project, right? If you don't plan on taking action and using it and making it a living and breathing tool, then it is just a pretty picture, and it doesn't have that results. And so being able to integrate the journey with near real-time data, with real-time data, with legacy data, or updating data, that's part of the importance to understand that as you look at a journey, if something all of a sudden has gone south, you need to know that, because it again, last experience, right, being what's so important. So you got to understand that as close to that. So it's just a high level view, but the reality is being able to understand this view. And so taking those columns of the different steps. This is an example of an airplane purchase and flight and so forth example. But and we're going to walk through some components of it. But again, the key here is getting people involved to look at that and understanding that. And that's where I know QuestionPro has their product is really great at getting that collaboration and driving change. But it takes on a little bit of a different set of capabilities as we look through that. So ultimately, um, the QuestionPro's CJM, customer journey management capabilities, there's some key areas of opportunity. We're going to talk about a few of these, but one is personas, and we're going to dig into that a little bit. And then obviously, as Dave talked about, knowing the journey map to, right, or of, we got to know the stages, the steps, the touch points, what is happening within that. Being able to integrate into surveys, in real-time fashion, that as surveys are being completed on the back end, they're plugging those changes right into the journey map. So you can see at different stages when that experience is changing. And obviously, too, that is all the different metrics that go with that. And it's not just survey metrics. This is metrics around, again, if you want to track, like Dave, like you talked about, the handle time reduction, well, you got to be tracking handle time for that stage of the journey. You've got to look at the different, resolution rates and things of that nature. It's not just surveys, but it's about that data approach. And then you want the voice of the customer. And Dave, I know one of the big things that maybe you'll even spend a second talking about here in just a second is on the interview process, how important that is, getting that interview, getting the video of that, et cetera. And then from that, the voice of the customer, being able to attach those to the journey. Because again, you want to win hearts and minds, show the customer talking about it and the pain that they feel. And then again, outer loop, action and ownership, who's going to do what? How are we going to make it change? And then, of course, collaboration and version. We talked a lot about that, because if you've got a lot of people working on it, which is what you want to be able to version that, see how people are changing and working within that. And then for QuestionPro, they're investing a lot in AI capabilities, a map generator, a persona builder from that perspective. But I want to go back to your voice of the customer and the audio video. Talk a little bit about the importance of that step in the journey mapping process.
Absolutely. It's the qualitative, right? It's the interaction with customers, sitting down and having a conversation about their journey, about their experience, where you get the deep insights that you're not going to get in a 3-question survey. And that so before the pandemic, to do those interviews, I had to build a big team, had like 12 people, fly them all over the country to sit down with customers, have these conversations. And then after the interview, we'd send a pair of interviewers. So we'd have 2 memories, not just one. Then the pair would go to a coffee shop or something as quick as they could get there and share all their notes and try and capture everything that they talked about. The pandemic normalized what we're doing right now, video meetings. And it is now so incredibly easy and inexpensive to interview customers on a video meeting and record that. And at my company, we've got a whole process for how we get consent to record customers and share clips and all of that. But as one of my clients said, Those little video clips, I've also got an editor, and we make these reels so they're real punchy and highlight, many customers talking about a moment of truth. One of my clients said those reels are so compelling. I mean, you're hearing the customer in their own words. You're seeing their emotions. You're seeing them throw up their hands when they're talking about something that went poorly. He said some of these guys are in offices, some of them are on their cell phones in their car, and most executives don't get that close to their customers. And so those video clips, that qualitative research is so critical to understanding these journeys, but also to making the case for change. I've seen so many executive teams get fired up when they watch those videos. I mean, I remember one person kind of coming out of her chair and saying, I've been telling you guys for years about this. Are we finally going to do something? And to that company's credit, they did do something. And
Yeah.
and that was the turning point. That was the moment that sparked the change.
So powerful, so powerful. And again, executive teams listening to calls, done some, maybe not as pervasive as you might think or hope, but that's even bigger, right? To see it and see the facial expressions and all of that is so key. Well, let's talk about those people that we might be interviewing. So personas. So personas, I know Dave, you got kind of a way of looking at that as I do to say personas are really important to understand. The journey isn't the same for everyone. I think someone earlier in the chat talked about, there are different segments, there are different people. You have to understand, but it's based more about what the objective is than it is anything like demographics or marketing purposes or marketing profiles. Personas are really about their objective, right? So Dave, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so your marketing department is going to have buyer personas, and that's fine. They can do that. That's part of marketing. For customer experience management, we really want psychographic personas. So it's less about the demographics and more about the goals, going back to those three elements and the element of success. What's the customer trying to accomplish? What are their needs? What do they need to be successful? And then third, their values. What do they value in an experience? Could be a functional value like saves me time, makes me money, saves me money. Could be an emotional value like the badge value of having this luxury item. Could be an aspirational value of I'm buying this Fitbit because it's going to motivate me to achieve, one of my life goals right now. So understanding these customers according to their goals, needs, and values allows us to develop our journey map personas. I'll give you a concrete example. This is in the B2C realm. We were mapping the end-to-end customer journey for a internet company like we've all got at home internet company, high-speed fiber internet. Okay. And one of our personas was the work from home user. Now, this person was different. Sure, they also watched Netflix. They also got on Facebook and emailed their mom. But they were different from the other personas because their goal, their most important goal for having this high-speed internet was their ability to earn a living. And so in our research, we talked to a director of marketing for like a Fortune 10 company, right? Somebody who's making a ton of money as a director of marketing for a Fortune 10 company. We also talked to a remote contact center operator and who had just gotten her first apartment. These two people couldn't be any further apart demographically in terms of income and where they lived, but psychographically, they both had the same goal. They had to be able to work with their internet. And when the internet went down during working hours, it was jeopardizing their very livelihood. The director of marketing, like his coworkers were kind of poking fun at him. Like, oh, let's see if Dave lasts the whole meeting on that junky internet he has, right? The remote contact center operator, if hers went down, she was logged out of the phone system, she wasn't getting paid, and she was facing disciplinary action if she was out of the phone system for too long during working hours. So that's a psychographic persona based on their goals to make a living, their needs, 100% uptime during working hours, and their value of this internet allows me to make a living and to have this work from home lifestyle.
And that's why it's so important because you have to do the interviews or you won't figure this out. Like you can't go into it knowing who your personas are without really digging into their objectives, their goals, their use cases, their needs. And that is the core. I mean, we kind of talked about it, the power of the videos, for instance, being for, really selling it, but also to understand it and really drive that kind of communication. So again, as we continue to look at this, these are just going to be a couple ideas or a couple of steps here. We noted in that contact support, Dave and I, that the AI created a picture where the screen was on the back of the computer monitor. So that's good. But again, you're looking across that, and we talked earlier. This is where just starts by understanding, a process map is not a journey map, but there's a component here that says how can what are the options, what are the touch points that someone can use at different steps. So really understanding the different tags around websites or mobile devices or chatbots or all those different tools, because understanding the process is core to then helping improve it on the end result. But it's really about layering this together and understanding the flow, and then adding to that from the surveys, from the data, really honing in on things like sentiment. Where is sentiment high? Where is it low? What steps? And that's where the research comes in, qualitative and quantitative, as much as you can get to when you understand that, because you're ultimately looking for those cons, those challenges, and obviously, the what we all call kind of the moments of truth, because that's where your opportunity lies, right? When you really dig in and understand the personas and each of them differently, what their moments of truth are, that's when you really start to understand. Now, you may be doing well in a moment of truth right now, but understanding as well when that changes, that's going to be those areas. Because if it's the last experience they have that determines, you want to know, where are we struggling? Where are there things shifting? I was working with an organization, and we were journey mapping, and we had this built out this to really understand. It was an onboarding map in that context. So it was based on work we were doing, across marketing and sales, et cetera. And um, we're mapping it and everything's looking good. And then all of a sudden, a certain step as a financial institution, the certain step of validating your bank account tanked, like overnight, plummeted. What we found was we had made a problem. Someone had in marketing had basically said, all right, we're going to send out an email, we're going to send it out 2 days earlier than we were because we're going to make it easier by sending it out earlier. Well, what they had forgotten is the link on that email. They didn't realize it wouldn't work by moving it 2 days up. The link wasn't ready yet. And so it broke everything. And so again, understanding in almost real time when these things change is so important, because we were able to address it very quickly and then fix it. But without that kind of measurement, we could have gone weeks without that. And in an onboarding experience, that's a lot of lost consumers and customers. So, but as we continue as well, the last, as we go to, again, this is about action and ownership. This is part of being able to integrate into the technology. It becomes not just a mapping set of technology, but QuestionPro with their outer loop program. Now you can actually, from the maps, directly create a task. Those opportunities from the previous slide, those moments of truth, and then assign an owner. So it becomes so much more. Again, if you're going journey management, if you're going into action, you've got to create the same kind of level of capability, not just to mapping it and seeing how it's changing, but actually driving the action so that those responsibilities can be assigned to an owner. The owners are, we can prioritize those responsibilities in those areas of opportunity, and then ultimately track progress within the work. So it becomes also almost that, that change management day, that Dave, that you talked across across the journey. And so creating that opportunity to drive to that next level of steps, because you want those boxes with the incredible data that Dave shown on success. This is where the money meets the road, or I don't know, whatever the terminology. I think I muddied up two different statements there, but the rubber meets the road or the money matters. So, but this is again goes to that future state. Dave, what are your thoughts there when you think about, how you've seen organizations that you've worked with truly close the loop? What's different about them, because everybody can say we're going to do it and yeah, we're going to take action, but what's different about those that actually have the results that you were able to quote earlier?
They make a plan and do the work, right? So when we talked about the micro journey, we did the map in about 6 weeks, and by the end of the quarter, they had developed new standard operating procedures, rolled out training to the departments affected, and deployed some technology that they already had in house but weren't using. So they took those three actions and then they tracked the progress and they saw those resolution times go down and down and down until they hit the 81% reduction. For the client that got the 66% reduction in customer churn year over year, the customer journey hadn't really changed since they launched the project, or since they launched the product 13 years prior, but the market had. And customers now had capabilities that they didn't have 13 years before. And so the journey was no longer meeting their needs. And so using that customer feedback, we had to go back and redesign the journey, change the product, create training so that customers could do things more in a self-service way. And that was the way that they wanted to lower effort. It took about a year to make all those changes. So the companies that are doing this successfully are taking the insights and using that to make a plan and then executing the plan. And whether it's a micro journey and you can get it done in a quarter, or whether it's a much bigger journey or an end-to-end journey that's going to take you years, it's continuing to chip away at it. Like the company I mentioned who's made 70 improvements to a single touch point over the last 6 years, right? It's the persistence.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of alluded to it, and I'll hit that as kind of the piece here as well. I like, you kind of called it the atlas physically, like the country map and the state map and the city map, right? I kind of look at it as the Russian nesting dolls, maps within maps within maps. Because again, going to it, from macro about a service experience and in a general sense to micro where it's a whole bunch of different very specific journeys. I mean, they all have a place. But again, now you think about it, instead of one wall of sticky notes, I need now these maps to relate. And that's another thing that QuestionPro's CGM does, is embedding maps within maps, linking to other maps. Because as you get those cross-functional teams engaged, you're able to look at it and say, all right, here's the overall service map, but supply chain owns a key moment of truth within that, let's say. Well, they need their own map, right, of the different steps within supply chain that they're going to make changes to that roll up then to the overall supply chain step for a more mid-level journey. And that gives that opportunity for, on the previous slide, the ownership and accountability and actions required for that work, but also the visualization. So that again, if you've got that environment, being able to have these maps interlinked and related, not just in a menu, which QuestionPro does as well, but literally within the map itself, to click on it and then be in that other map, seeing the results and the work being done there as well. So it's that ability to make that connection. Because again, the journey is so much more complex. Our own functions in business now are so much more complex, that having this level of evaluation is key to truly understanding the experience. So I want to last slide here, but I did we definitely, you can tell Dave and I are a little bit passionate about this. little bit, right? Living and breathing this. But this is not something that's just easy to do. I know I've had some folks reach out and say, "Hey, can you send me a map, a journey map, so I can copy it?" It's like that. It's more than that, right? And so whether that's a workshop where can come out and deliver a workshop on how to do journey mapping, what the opportunities are, how to use the technology within that. But of course, journey strategy consultation. I know, Dave, you do a ton of that in conversations as well on that. In fact, the Pathfinder, the Journey Map Review, is something you're offering today to this audience. Tell a little bit about that kind of Pathfinder.
Yeah, so we talked earlier about, ask 10 people what a customer journey map is, you get 10 different answers. There's a CRM vendor who shall remain nameless. They have a video on YouTube called Create a Customer Journey Map in 1 hour. I'm kind of on a mission to standardize what a journey map is, how we do it, how we get results from it. And for that reason, I do a few a month. I don't do a lot of these, but a few a month, I'll do a Pathfinder. And this is a free journey map review. We'll sit down for 25 minutes. I'll look at your journey map, whether you've got a blank piece of paper or a finished map. We'll talk about how to take that next best action to drive change and business outcomes in your organization. So it's there on my website. If you're ever interested, we can sit down and look at your journey map.
Absolutely. And then I know myself, being affiliated with QuestionPro and working side by side with them, if you'd like a demo, an actual demo of the platform to see how it works, see what the difference maker that kind of technology can give, go to albertsonspeaks.com, contact, and just drop me a note there, connect with me. Love to give you a demo and show you a little bit of that. But as well, there you can sign up for workshops if you want to do that as well. So grab me on the contact page, grab Dave on the Pathfinder. So much opportunity to learn. And has this been, hopefully this has been value. I get some thumbs up on the screen here, but hopefully this has been value to you, because again, it goes right back to the focus that things are more important now than ever before. The stakes couldn't be higher in customer experience. I like to say that there's a noun definition of CX and a verb definition of CX. The noun is things like a survey, a department, a role. Those are kind of rough right now. Let's be honest. There are layoffs and things are being questioned from a survey standpoint. But the customer's experience, the verb, is more important now than ever. And journey mapping and journey management is how you figure that out and how you make the kind of change. Because again, the stakes are so high. 13 times more likely on my last experience, if it's hard, 13 times more likely to be disloyal. There's not much better prediction of a true ROI than that, but you got to get to the level of detail from a journey mapping perspective. So the other option I want to say is, if you've enjoyed this, we have sessions like this weekly. So join us, cxontherocks.com, join us. Yeah, come to our events. We have topics like this, all of the topics around customer experience. You can learn, you can share your own insights and strategies and opportunities. And we look forward to seeing you on one of those events coming up. Thank you very much, everyone.